Hello, everybody. Welcome to my morning coffee and The Last of Us Part 1 Remastered stream. Hope you guys are doing alright. I don't remember what happens next. I think we're going to meet Tommy. Don't worry, I'm not going to play the Left Behind DLC afterwards. I experienced it once and I'm good. Hello, if you're joining me. So I want to talk about something that's on my mind right now, and I think it's related to the controversy surrounding The Last of Us Part 2 and a lot of other things that are happening in media right now. And what I experienced recently was, and I'll stop talking when the characters start talking because I don't want to miss any Jackson County Snake River Trail. This game is beautiful. For a game of its age, this is a PlayStation 3 title. Pretty impressive. Amy Hennig is a talent, and she will be missed, and I hope that she continues to do great stories for video games in the future. Are we supposed to go down there? Anyway, I was in this group on Facebook. It was a Dungeons and Dragons group. It's called Dungeons and Dragons Uncensored.
Just follow the river. It'll lead us straight to Tommy's. Come on.
It was a D&D group called D&D Uncensored, and people can supposedly post whatever, and they don't get removed. There were some guidelines, some of which were a bit contradictory.
What happened between you two?
What do you mean?
You and Tommy. You're not together, so clearly something went down.
We just had a bit of a disagreement, that's all.
Ah, here we go. So what was it about?
Tommy saw the world one way, I saw it the other.
And that's why he joined the Fireflies.
Yeah, your friend Marlene promised him hope. That kept him busy for a while, but just like Tommy, he eventually quit that too.
How was it? The last time you saw him?
I believe his last words to me were, "I don't ever want to see your goddamn face again."
Jeez. But he's gonna help us?
I suppose we're gonna find out.
Well, if they're without his help, we'll get there.
Let's just keep going.
So, this D&D group I was in, and I say group, I mean like a community, not like I wasn't playing with them or anything. There was a lot of arguments going on whenever the politically correct stuff came up. Because it is a thing that's creeping into D&D, and it's a big problem. It's becoming a big problem all the time, okay? I'm gonna look and see if there's anything over here. Because I do see... Yep, I knew it. Another one of her comics. Anyway, I got into it with people in the group multiple times. I didn't think it was a big deal. My whole thing has always been, with regards to just about anything, is that I don't want people to lose the freedom to enjoy things the way they want to enjoy them. I don't want them to lose the ability to do that. And the problem with leftists is they want to control everyone else's fun. This isn't something that I need to go into detail for. We've seen that countless times. It's always happening.
And turns it into electricity.
How does it do that?
Look, I know what it is. I don't know how it does it.
Alright. How are we getting across?
Supplies, supplies, supplies. Supplies, supplies, supplies. You guys ever see Gomer Pyle, USMC? Alright, time to make some shit. First, I'll replace the shiv that I just used, then I'll make it a Molotov cocktail, and lastly, I will upgrade my weapon. And I will speed up my crafting speed, because why not? Okay. So anyway, we know this is an issue, we've seen it countless times, and there was arguments about whether or not orcs are racist and all these other things, but here's the thing that's most annoying. The most recent controversy in the Dungeons and Dragons world is Wizards of the Coast. Okay, we gotta get across the other side though. Wizards of the Coast are essentially pledging to change the way in which evil races in general are portrayed in role-playing games. So, and their reasoning is,
I'll find something.
the reasoning is, let's see if there's anything underwater here. Okay, I know what I gotta do. Let me just come up. Alright, I gotta pause. So the reasoning behind this, or what they're saying, is that essentially, you know, they are concerned about racial stereotypes in fantasy races in games like Dungeons & Dragons, in the settings. And I talked a little bit about this when I did the stream of Last of Us Part 2 with Mike J, when I first saw the article. And I predicted that they were actually going to go that route before. I think that there was talk around it, and someone on Twitter that worked at Wizards was like, we're looking into it. And sure enough, they're basically making a pledge to do something about it. And now they have essentially confirmed that in their two new settings, or newer settings, Eberron, which, you know, it's not brand new, but it came out with third or fourth edition, I can't remember which, and something else, Wildemount or something, that they're coming out with. Essentially, races such as Gnolls, Drow, and Orcs, I believe, and maybe some other ones, are not going to be considered to be, by default, evil, but rather, you know, there's just cultural differences, okay, in whatever. And I've seen people making this case, right, in a fantasy world setting, okay? Now, my concern for this is that when you start to do that, when you, as a game designer, developer, a lead, a person that's considered to be an authority, when you start to do that, you are taking the freedom from the game masters away, because you're creating a top-down structure to how the world should be. Now, obviously, before anybody says anything, any DM or GM, game master, referee, can do whatever they want in their world. Of course they can, obviously. It doesn't have to impact you if you don't want to. However, the issue is that this top-down idea is having an effect on, or will have an effect on, not only how the people who made the game view game masters that decide they're not going to use those rules, but it's also going to affect the culture's view of those people. So if I'm a game master and I say Drow are just evil by nature, and I'm just going to play them that way because that's what they are. And of course, there are some exceptions, you know, so that somebody can live their little Dritz fantasy or whatever. I if I go to a convention, if I join a gaming league, if I get into like, you know, online gaming groups that are you know, run by people that work closely with Wizards, or just by people who I don't know, they're all going to go in they're going into all this with a default position that these character races have been changed because stereotyping them as evil is problematic. And that's part of the conditioning. So when there's someone who's like, oh, well, they're evil because, first of all, they're fucking fantasy elves. They're not real people. Second of all, most of the good and evil in fantasy settings is that way because there are good and evil forces that exist outside of, like, the material plane, that there are gods and there are monsters, and evil is real and it's material, and you can, you know, in many cases you can even see it and touch it. Right? It exists. And but they wouldn't see it. That's not good enough, right? That it has to be that the problem with leftists is that they're materialists. Like they don't think that things can exist outside of the material, and they do so while denying reality to some degree. And so it's definitely going to become an obstacle. And while they haven't done this whole, like, moral relativist bullshit into everything D&D, they're starting with the worlds that they think they can get away with it in. But I promise you, they're going to put it in everything if they can. And it starts there. Now, when I was younger, where's the, let me see where the, okay. When I was younger as a gamer, I didn't like the idea of alignments. And alignments, in case you don't know, in Dungeons & Dragons, an alignment is essentially whether your character is good or evil, and whether your character is lawful or chaotic, which really means whether your character is, you know, all about order, they're about chaos, what might be more charitably described as freedom. Okay? I'm gonna have to come up really quick. I'm gonna go down one more time. I don't want to take the chance. So, when I was a kid, and I was first getting into it, I didn't like those rules, because I thought they were kind of arbitrary. Like, I was like, well, and I thought they were restrictive, too. You know, because I was a kid. I wanted to be free. To basically play a character however I wanted, and I saw that as a restriction. But the fact is, the alignments help you roleplay your character. They're not actually a limit. They're like, okay, let me get her over to this side. They're actually helpful. Because it gives you like a set of principles, I guess, that your character should abide by. And of course, these are not like hard rules anyway. Okay, I'm gonna go back. I feel like there's something else down here I may have missed. Like I want to look. Maybe. Oh. So, I don't actually believe that anymore. Thank you, dear. I'm probably gonna fall in.
I will.
All this for nothing.
Teamwork.
See? Ellie really wants to bond with Joel in this game. It's really obvious. Wait, that's where we're supposed to go, so I'm gonna go this way. Because there's shit over here. Okay, anything else? No. Can I make anything? No. Alright. Check over here. Oh.
That's too small.
I got to leave that stupid robot on his grave. What should I do with it? What? I want to talk about it.
No.
Why not?
How many times do we need to go over this? Things happen, and we move on.
just...
That's enough.
You're right. I'm sorry.
Let's get to Tommy's.
Your audio is cutting in and out. Is it? Oh, I'm sorry. I don't know why that is. I don't have my fan on today because it's kind of cool. Okay, so I hope that you can hear me, but so I thought, okay, this group, this D&D group, they're really hostile, like mostly. I posted about this dark elf business.
I know, I am too.
Alright, next squirrel I see, I'm totally shooting it.
Let's get past this place, then we can scrounge up some food.
Well, if I starve, you're responsible.
Goes back to where we were. There's nothing in here. What was I saying? Yeah, so I thought, okay, maybe these players, they're like me when I was young, and I just, like, wanted to be, you know, I wanted that freedom. And the fact is, too, is that a lot of tabletop role-playing games, the overwhelming majority, don't have a system of morality. Plant. I like how it was in a pot, too. But, yeah, a lot of role-playing games don't have alignments, so people think that alignments are a little bit of an aberration already. But I think that they make a lot of sense in D&D because Gary Gygax created, as I described before, an entire cosmology. He didn't just, you know... Ooh. I almost missed that. El Diablo. Okay. I mean, they just gave me a gun, so I'm probably going to end up getting into a fight. So, anyway. I assume that maybe it's because the players, like I said, they hadn't really considered what's going on here, and that the idea of well, I'll wait till this is over.
Don't even think about reaching for your weapon. Tell the girl to drop hers now.
Ellie? Do as the lady says.
Hey.
Please tell me you're lost.
We didn't know the place was occupied. We're just trying to make our way through.
Through to where?
They're all right.
Wait, you know these people?
Know him. He's my goddamn brother.
Tommy.
Holy shit.
How you doing, big brother?
Goddamn.
Wait, Tommy's the big brother?
Look at you.
Yeah, Joel looks way older.
Fucking old.
Easy. Won't happen to you, too.
This is Maria. Be nice to her. She sort of runs things around here.
Ma'am? Thanks for not blowing my head off.
Would have been embarrassing, considering you're my brother-in-law.
We all gotta get wrangled up at some point.
He got married in
Ellie,
the post-apocalyptic future.
Yeah.
I forgot about this Maria character that I don't actually give a shit about. Joel's the big bro. Okay, I thought so.
Why don't we bring him inside?
Yeah. You hungry?
Starving.
False alarm! They're friendlies. We've been dealing with raids. A lot of bandits in this area.
It's been quiet for a few days.
What the hell are you doing here? Thought I'd find you in Jackson.
I'm trying to bring the plant back to life.
We had it working before. One of the turbines went south.
We have electricity, though. I had. We'll get it running again.
No way. You guys have horses.
We got a whole lot of them.
Hey, Tommy, give me a hand with this.
Sorry, I'll be right back.
Can I? Yeah, of course.
You like swimming years. You ever ride one?
I actually have.
When have you ridden a horse?
Winston, this soldier back in the zone, just gave me lessons.
You know, if you want, we can take him riding later.
That'd be awesome.
Joel went right for the ass.
Hey, thanks, Tommy.
No sweat. All right, let's continue the tour.
Remember, Tommy and company, he's the same dude that allowed Abby to, like, know exactly where they were and
We'll be fine.
tell them their names and get them, essentially get them killed.
Take it easy.
Wait a minute. All right.
Maria,
Yeah, go ahead.
we're in the control room. Steve's about to start it back up. You want to come check it out?
It's my turn anyway. I'll go.
I'll come with you. Go with Maria. Let's include it.
Come on, Ellie. Let's give the boys some space.
See, she doesn't want to be away from him, too. See? I think it's all fair.
The sixth time they're trying to get
She's a child.
We've been here just a week. It feels like forever. I got something for you. Last year I went back to Texas, back home. Most of our stuff is long gone. Most of it. Here. It's a little faded, but it still looks pretty good.
I'm good.
You sure? I mean,
I said I'm good.
okay. I'll hold on to it for you.
Tommy, I need to talk to you. Privately.
Yeah. Okay. Let me just check on my guys. Come on.
Alright, I'm just going to play through this section until there's ample time to talk about this good thing going on within tabletop gaming. I'm going to go this way really quick, because he's going that way and there's stuff in here. Look, a workbench? No. But bullets. Anything else? Okay. This one is. Hold on, Tommy. I'm just gonna like kneel down in the in the middle of the hall here. I need 100 for that. Okay.
I don't know what you heard, but you should see the town. We're over 20 families strong now. It was Maria and her father. They set up this place with the idea of being self-sustained. We had crops and livestock. Remember how we thought no one could live like this anymore? We're doing it.
What do you do for protection?
Adults take turns guarding the perimeter. We got an electrified fence through the plant.
You still gotta deal with infected though, right?
Who doesn't? But it's the world we live in.
Well, maybe you don't have to be.
You sound like Marlene.
Hey, buddy.
That's Bucker. Not much of a gardener.
That's a good boy.
Maybe good to have around. These two geniuses are gonna bring this plant back to life.
We think we got it this time. You don't believe us?
I didn't say that.
I'll bet you $1 million it works.
Sure.
What are you gonna be doing without these rags and alcohol
Putting the shield back on. No rush. To the left.
and scissors?
Okay, that's good. Slowly.
All right, that's good.
Tommy's here. Good to go.
Give me 1 second. Okay, good to go.
Ready?
Go ahead. Hit it.
God damn.
We did it, boys! Nice work, boys. Somebody get on the horn and give Maria the good news. You see that?
Pretty impressive. Looks like you're out $2 million.
All right, Joe. Let's go tell them.
Alright, gonna talk to Tommy now.
It's quite the crew you got here.
Yeah, they're good men. This place gives them a second chance. Gives us all a second chance. Why'd you leave Boston?
I've been on quite the adventure, little brother.
I reckon it's got something to do with that girl.
He's got everything to do with that little girl.
Well, go on then.
She's immune.
Immune to what?
Seen
come
her, I know I've seen her breathe enough spores to take down 12 men. Nothing. I wouldn't have believed it neither. It showed.
All right. I'll bite. Why bring her here?
Supposed to deliver to the Fireflies. The way I figure they're your boys. You finish the job, you collect the whole damn thing.
I haven't seen a Firefly in years.
You know where they are. Now, I'm not asking for much, Tommy. I just want some simple gear, enough to set me on my way.
What makes you think I'd do this?
This isn't for me, Tommy. This is for your damn cause.
My cause is my family now. You ain't talking about some walk in the park here.
Jesus, boy. Have Maria get some of your born-again friends to do it.
They got families too.
Tommy, I need this.
You want some gear? Sure. But I ain't taking that girl off your hands.
This is how you gonna repay me, huh?
Pay you.
For all those goddamn years I took care of us.
Took care. That's what you call it? I got nothing but nightmares from those years.
You survived because of me.
It wasn't worth it.
Bring you the cure for mankind, and you wanna play the pissy little brother.
We ain't back in Boston. You lay your hands on me again, it won't end well for you.
The hell is that?
We're under attack. You still remember how to kill, right?
Yeah.
Shit! Bandit!
I knew it. So, I only got 2 left. Let's do that. Tommy, get the fuck out of the way. This is. I think this is supposed to be like.
Maria, God damn it.
I think this is supposed to give you a preview of the multiplayer in it.
There he is! It's over there! It's over there! He's over there! Over here!
Dude, you wasted all of my shit. You motherfucker.
We gotta get to the girls. Right behind you. Joe.
Oh, that's them. What the fuck? Is it just that guy? Y'all are okay.
You okay?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Oh man, they were coming in from every direction and Maria was like, we gotta run, and so we dove over these tables and this huge guy blasted with a shotgun.
Slow down. Listen, hey, are you hurt?
No.
God damn it. I need to talk to you.
Absolutely not. You tell him to go find somebody else. Do you have any idea how many men we lost here?
What's that all about? Does that have anything to do with me?
Talk about it later.
Did he tell you where the lab is?
We'll talk about it later.
Later. Right.
One fuck up and then I turn into one of those widows, okay?
I have to do this. I don't know what else to say.
Fine.
There could have been a game where you played as Tommy.
You. If anything at all happens to him, it's on you.
She's thankful.
Yeah, I know.
I'll take that girl of yours to the Fireflies. You don't have to worry about it.
It's best this way.
Maybe some real good will come of this.
I need to talk to Ellie.
Say again, I didn't hear you. Joel!
What is it?
That girl of yours. She took one of our horses and rode off.
Which way?
Come on.
I just saw her riding on out of here.
Go back inside. Help the others clean the place up.
Hey, careful out there.
There.
Yeah.
Tracks?
No, Ellie's running away. She got this far this fast?
She couldn't have gotten far. We'll find her. Don't worry.
Stupid kid.
She usually bullies stunts.
Nothing like this. What's going on? She didn't go down this way. Let's go. Ellie, what are you There. More tracks.
Okay, good.
Whoa, 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 whoa!
How many do you see?
Too goddamn many.
What the fuck? Did I make a wrong turn? What the fuck are you doing? You creeping up? I'm gonna look around for some shit though. Ellie can wait. Hey. Nice jump. Okay. I'm gonna, let's see. Anything over here? No. I'm gonna heal up. So let's do this. And then we will make us to, there we go. Can't go that way. Where am I supposed to, where did Tommy go then? Or can I go this way? Nope.
Come on, back to the horses.
All right. It's a weird section.
Tracks keep going this way.
Look, by the ranch. That's our horse. She's gotta be there.
Area looks clear.
How is this still intact so close to where those guys were at?
Be careful.
Ellie? Ellie?
Reckon you guys need that.
Thanks, brother. I'm just cleaning the place out before I go upstairs. Damn it, my health was full. I didn't even have to do that. This place is shockingly roomy as fuck and also intact. Another comic book. Okay. This room now. Some more shit. I'm guessing that Ellie is in the behind the closed door, so I'm just gonna check. Alright, it's a bathroom. I'm like anxious about activating the cutscene because then I won't be able to grab more supplies and secrets, you know. I don't want to activate the cutscene. It's one of the things about these story-driven games kind of bugs me. Another thing that I think the Souls series gets right, where the stories they have different controls, I guess. So now one of these doors will go to Ellie and activate the cutscene, and one of them won't. I'm gonna go out on a limb and say this one is the one that Ellie's behind because it's sort of lit up. I don't know if you can see, like the sun is coming through to give it a bit of a halo. It's open just a crack. This one probably leads to another bathroom, yeah. And I was right. Understand game logic. Alright, so I've checked everything. So I guess I'll activate the cutscene.
Is this really all they had to worry about? Boys, movies, deciding which shirt goes with which skirt. It's bizarre.
Get up. We're leaving.
And if I say no?
Do you even realize what your life means? Huh? Running off like that, putting yourself at risk, it's pretty goddamn stupid.
Well, I guess we're both disappointed with each other then.
What do you want from me?
Admit that you wanted to get rid of me the whole time.
Tommy knows this area.
Oh, fuck!
Well, I'm sorry. I trust him better than I trust myself.
Stop with the bullshit. What are you so afraid of? That I'm gonna end up like Sam? I can't get infected. I can take care of myself.
How many close calls have we had?
Well, we seem to be doing all right so far.
And now you'll be doing even better with Tommy.
Not her, you know.
What?
Maria told me about Sarah.
Ellie?
And
You're treading on some mighty thin ice here.
I'm sorry about your daughter, Joel. But I have lost people too.
You have no idea what loss is.
Everyone I have cared for has either died or left me. Everyone fucking except for you. So don't tell me that I would be safer with someone else, because the truth is I would just be more scared.
You're right. You're not my daughter. And I sure as hell ain't your dad. We are going our separate ways.
Get it together. We're not alone.
There are two walking in.
There's more inside already.
Aw. Let me pause for a second. Take a look at your comments. Matthias Nordblad says, are there any series where a zombie apocalypse has happened and humanity is starting to take over the earth once again? I don't know. I don't really watch a lot of zombie stuff, and I don't really read a lot of zombie stuff. But I would guess, based on that description, that they're uncommon because it's not really a lot of room for tension in a world where everything is getting better. I suppose you could tell like a story about an individual, but it doesn't really have the same, like everything going well doesn't really have the same gravitas. Damn, fucking throat jab for the KO. Yeah, we interrupt this emotional tension to bring you gameplay. Yeah, man, but Joel doesn't play. That's one of the reasons why I love this game, actually. He's because like especially if you contrast it against the Uncharted games, which I love, they're just really different tonally. You know, Nathan Drake knocks a guy out with like a left hook and an uppercut, and he like breaks a guy's neck, but he does so like, you know, like with a little bit of like I don't know how to put it. It's like whimsical, like, you know, and he makes a comment like, you know, gotcha. And then, you know, he shoots people in the face, but it's all done in like a PG-13 kind of way. But when Joel kills people, it's like, you know, they're trying to drive home that this is like really mature. And I'm okay with that stuff. I'm okay with that. I think that tonally it fits, you know. It's the difference between getting shot, you know, in like a cop show or in a Die Hard movie, and like getting, you know, and getting shot in like a Walking Dead or, you know, like a Michael Mann movie. It's like there's a big difference. So tonally, I've been playing the first Uncharted, kind of boring to be honest. I like the first Uncharted, but it is the weakest. The Uncharted 2 is when it really, really picks up. I'll stream the Uncharted games too if you guys are interested. I have like all of them, and I've been wanting to get back into them from playing this because they're faster paced. They're definitely more about like action set pieces, and you know, they're just fun. They are fun games. I've also been wanting to play like Jedi Fallen Order again. I played the first one. I really liked it, actually. Probably best EA game I played in a long time. In addition, I don't know if you guys ever played this, but I just started yesterday Sleeping Dogs, which I had it for a while, but I hadn't gotten around to playing it. Sleeping Dogs is pretty darn fun. That is a pretty fucking cool game. It seems to me kind of underrated. Like, I heard about it, but not a lot of hype around it. So yeah, Sleeping Dogs, pretty good. Probably have to check that out. Okay, so I wanted to go back to what I was saying. Before I do, I'll do this action set piece, and then I'll quit for the day. Is The Last of Us fun? Yeah, when they're, you know... The thing is, the first Last of Us, which is the one I'm playing right now, you play it for the story, but the gameplay isn't bad either, okay? You mainly play it for the story, and I think it has a really, really great story, really good characters, really well-made world, and from what I understand, although I haven't played it myself, the multiplayer is actually quite good. The issue with the second one is that while it maintains the same quality of, definitely the graphics are better, the gameplay is about the same, you know, with some minor tweaks here and there. The characters are just not likable. The story is not good. It has lots of inconsistencies, a lot of plot holes, a lot of things that don't make sense happen in it. And it's an exercise in nihilism, which brings me to the thing I wanted to talk about. So I want to go back to what I was talking about regarding the changes that Wizards of the Coast are going to be applying to some of their Dungeons and Dragons settings with regards to what they're describing as evil races. And when I say evil races, we're talking about non-human races, such as orcs, gnolls, goblinoids, dark elves or drow, as they're also known, etc., right? And they're moving away from the idea that fantasy races such as, but not limited to, and not necessarily including, because I don't know how they're going to actually do it when they roll it out, but they are going to do it. Races such as orcs, drow, gnolls, goblins, etc., are not going to be considered to be by default evil races. And the reason is because they're trying to get away from what they're describing as problematic racial stereotypes. Now, of course, a lot of people in the D&D community, at least the ones that the circles I travel in that I've looked at, for some reason, they don't think that this is an excess of political correctness sort of bleeding into a fantasy tabletop role-playing game, but it really is. It really is. And I tried to explain this to a Facebook group I was in, essentially saying, why is this a thing when I shared the article, when any game master, whenever they want, could just do it at their table in their game, right? Because it's tabletop gaming, and you can make your own world the way you want. So if the DMs always had the option to do it themselves, why does it have to come from on high? What does it have to come from Wizards of the Coast? And of course, I got a lot of pushback, and my post got taken down by the group, so it was removed. And I was thinking it through, because they were calling me, people like me whiny babies, and they're, oh, you're afraid of change, oh, you're mad because they're changing your game, and these childish insults. And I got to think about it, and it's like, well, what do they not understand about why this is a problem? Maybe I should ask a different question. So I made another post, and I said, do you believe, and I didn't even say this in regards to role-playing games. I said specifically, not necessarily in regards to role-playing games, but in general. Do you believe that evil exists? Or do you believe that it's all relative? Like, do you think that whether or not something is evil is a subjective position, or is it an objective position? Can we objectively observe evil and point it out? And good, for that matter. Same thing, right? And I waited. And again, my comment didn't specify that I was talking about role-playing games. I was just saying it in general. And I got a lot of pushback for that. There are people who were, pushback in that some people thought I was referring to role-playing games, and they just assumed that I must have been referring specifically to the article, when and I even clarified, I'm just asking this question generally. And a lot of people, a surprising number, said that it's all subjective, essentially saying, one man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter. Things like that. It depends on your point of view. And I thought to myself, I used to believe that, and I want to know what you guys think. I think that there is such a thing as evil, and I think that evil exists. And when you understand the true meaning of human rights, of property rights, and of ethics, and this is like in the absence of religion, we don't need that. You don't need that to observe it, okay? So we're just talking about universally preferable behavior, which if it exists, if there is such a thing as universal ethics, then that means that there is such a thing as something that goes against those ethics, and that means that there is such a thing as evil, which of course also implies that there is such a thing as good or virtue. Okay? And very few people, without me really getting into it, very few people in that group could wrestle with that idea. And my post was taken down again. And again, all I said was, I didn't say anything offensive. And the name of the group is literally Dungeons & Dragons 5th Edition Uncensored. That's the name of the group, ironically. All I said was, does evil exist? Or is it subjective? And I got that post got removed. And there were a few people who agreed that evil is real. One guy said, I work in the prison. I work in a prison, and I can assure you that evil is real. And I thought to myself, yeah, that guy would know that, of course. But I want to know what you guys think, because this is what I think is happening. I'm going to tell you what I think is happening in D&D, and this is, by extension, why this is related to The Last of Us Part 2 and the controversy surrounding it. I think the people in D&D are going to move away from alignments altogether. And what they're going to do is they're going to bring this moral relativism in, and they're going to think in their mind, they believe that this actually opens up the possibility, the potential for better games and better stories when everything is really morally gray, okay, and morally ambiguous. And I think they want to get it to the point where even the beings in the D&D world, like demon lords, like devils, are just misunderstood and they're actually not evil, because that's where that logic goes. If you basically say, oh, you know, like, oh, there's no such thing as evil, it's all just relative, it's all just subjective, right? Then you can justify terrible acts against people. And that's exactly what the woke left does, right? When they're violent, they don't call it violence, they call it resistance. But they're being violent. When they burn down businesses, they justify it in their head saying, well, you know, the people who run these businesses are bad because historically, blah, 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 blah. It's all about how can I perform enough like mental gymnastics to essentially justify my actions. Because if you have to look at things in terms of, like, you know, objective ethics, universals, principally in a principled fashion, instead of something that really just comes down to pragmatism, because you're just trying to figure out how you can convince yourself and by extension other people, how you can convince those people that what you're doing is actually not bad. When you, like, you know, want to blow up the White House, as Madonna put it, when you want to you know, lynch a man because he was accused of rape, because you don't think that due process is fair. You convince yourself that taking away human rights, that assaulting a person, aborting a baby, again, I don't have a dog in the race when it comes to the abortion conversation, but we're talking about the logic that's being employed in support of abortion. The logic is, oh, it's my body, my choice, so it becomes subjective. It's my perspective, not the baby's. Or, yeah, whatever, acts of terrorism. Oh yeah, let's you know, there was a building that was burned down during the riots, and there were children inside and they died. And a cop had to go in. He couldn't get to them. I think the cops and the fire department couldn't get to them because the protesters were blocking the roads. And the protesters are essentially justifying that behavior, which resulted in the death of children. But because they believe that everything is subjective, which is a postmodern, you know, way of viewing the world, which essentially says there's no such thing as objective reality, that is also how you get to there's no such thing as evil. And so what the left is doing in real life, in the academic world, in the entertainment world, and that includes The Last of Us Part 2 and tabletop gaming, Dungeons and Dragons, they want to, because they believe this to be true, erase the idea of good and evil. And I think the reason for that, by the way, in part is because they despise religion. See, they don't like religion because they're materialists, even though they behave in religious ways. But we don't have to go down that rabbit hole. That's just exposing their hypocrisy. They despise religion. And I know that because I've seen what anti-theists do. And I've seen how anti-theists, they believe that morality itself comes from Christianity. And so if they're against Christianity, then they have to be against morality. So they try to figure out a way to dismantle morality, or at the very least sort of rebuild it in their own image so that they get to decide what's right and wrong. And that's essentially at the root of all this moral relativism, is to say, well, I get to decide what's right and wrong. And they won't call it, they'll call it evil if it's convenient, but they honestly don't believe in evil. And that's because they don't believe in universals. And again, I have to go to other things that I've seen. I've seen Stefan Molyneux debated with a couple of communists, right, a few times. And they all employed moral relativism to justify the actions of Maoist China, of the Soviet Union, of the Leninists during the revolution, of the actions that Che Guevara did and that Fidel Castro did, of the actions of North Korea in some way, whether they're saying, oh, that's not real communism, or by saying, well, it did result in a raise in GDP, so it was objectively good for the country, right? which I have seen. They also employ a kind of, I think there's a guy named Rationality Rules, and he interviewed Sargon once, if you don't know who he is. And he has a fucking hate boner for Molyneux for some reason. And one of the things that he doesn't like is Molyneux's universally UPB theory, which I think is extremely strong. Like, I think it's really, if you're not going to be religious, I think UPB is the way to go. And he despises it. Well, why? What's wrong with considering rape, assault, theft, and murder to be universally bad behavior? Because it can't be applied universally. It's not even making a moral case. It's just saying if you can't do it, if you have to, like, in order for something to be universal, you would have to want to do it to others and also want to have others do it to you. So, rape, assault, theft, and murder are not counted amongst those. But Rationality Rules doesn't like that because I think that he sees an organized moral hierarchy, a set of beliefs, a set of principles to be religious in nature. It's like too close to Christianity. And he's an atheist. He's an anti-theist, in fact. And anti-theists, I don't have a problem with atheism because I'm kind of an atheist myself, right? I'm not religious. I don't go to church. I find it to be cringe. When Lindsay was talking about, let's move to another state, she suggested Utah. I think it was Utah, and I was like, I don't know, man. There's a lot of Mormons. I don't want to deal with Mormons. And there was like one town, and she was like, wow, there's like a church every other block. And I'm like, yeah, we're not living there because I don't want to deal with, zealots. I don't want to deal with ideologues. And I want to get away from ideologues, right? So I'm not making this case because I want people to convert. I'm saying that there is a means by which you can live a secular life without spending all of your time attacking religion, because when you do that, you fail to see the value that religion has brought, because it has. And also you start getting into this like muck of moral relativism, which inevitably leads to nihilism. And nihilism, because that's the product of somebody who doesn't know or doesn't believe that anything matters. Because when you think everything is moral relative, everything is morality itself is all relative, then nothing actually matters. And when nothing matters, then you go into nihilism. And nihilism is basically the black pill. And I want people to stay away from the black pill. And it's also just not very useful. And so, like, with Dungeons and Dragons, they're removing evil from the game. And I know that a DM could just put it back in, but the point is, the reason why they do this from a top-down model is because they want the entire culture, the entire hobby, the customer base, the community, whatever you want to call it, to essentially fall in line with those ideals. And I think that in part it's because, again, they despise religion. It's only a matter of time before clerics are removed from the game altogether and they're replaced with something else. Something that fills the role mechanically but doesn't actually fill the role in a in the historical sense it always was, which is essentially a man of a holy man, right? They're going to get rid of that because I'm telling you, they're going to eliminate religion. They're going to eliminate morality. If there's no such thing as evil, there's no such thing as gods. And I wouldn't be surprised if they go that route. And that brings me to The Last of Us Part 2. In The Last of Us Part 1, which is the game I'm playing, there was such a thing. While everything was kind of morally gray because of the conditions under which people lived, there was goodness and there was real evil, and that actually shows itself. So you might believe that Joel is a bit morally ambiguous, but he isn't. He's a good man that's just had a really bad life. And Ellie is a good girl also, And Tommy is a good man. I mean, these are all obvious things that you see when you contrast it against these raiders that are basically willing to murder people and they take pleasure in it. Then later on, there are cannibals. You know, cannibalism is evil. You're not going to... How can you possibly, like, make the moral case for cannibalism and say that it's at least, like, not a moral evil? It is. Because it involves taking away the rights of other human beings. When you kill animals, that's different because animals don't have a sense of morality. So something that doesn't have a sense of morality cannot have morality applied to it. Right? Because if you say, well, I would never harm a tiger because I think it's morally wrong, the problem with that is the tiger doesn't have a problem with killing you. So, and it's not because it's like... gets any desire that comes from any place of sadism. It's because, you know, you're either in its territory or it's hungry and you're food. So we know that morality is in of itself a human construct. I'm not going to pretend like that's not the case, but they're trying to take that away, and that comes from, I think, a materialist view. Like, oh, we're just animals. Are we, though? Like, yes, we are, technically, but we're something more than that. It goes back to Jordan Peterson's whole thing about the divine individual. The divine individual is only that way because he has the ability to rationalize and speak and communicate those ideas. But the left doesn't believe that. They are purely materialist. They are collectivist. They are authoritarian, and they don't have a moral compass because... if they had to actually apply morality, they would find out just how evil they were. And they don't want to be seen that way. Alright, so I'm going to look at your comments. This is the reason why they're doing this in Dungeons & Dragons, is what I'm saying. Gary Gygax, the creator of D&D, was a Christian. And yet he filled his game with demons and devils and daemons and, you know, all that stuff. All this evil shit was in his game. And he got a lot of shit from Christians for D&D because they were suggesting that what he was engaging in was pagan devil worship shit. And he still did it. Now that the anti-theists have taken over, they're ruining the game. Think about that for a second. Okay. I've been playing the first Uncharted, kind of boring. I already read that bit. Matthias Nordblad said there is such a thing as human universals which are influenced by biology, so I think that would be close to objective morality as you could get. Shaman King says moral relativism sounds like an excuse to dehumanize people and justify shitty behavior. Absolutely. Moral relativism, an example of that is the idea of racism itself, which has been redefined to be only white people can be racist and no one can be racist towards white people. That's moral relativism, right? Matthias Nordblad, unless you believe in a God who is the objective arbiter of morality. Zering says, I heard the kids were saved. The video I watched even suggested this. What was wrong? Was that wrong? UPB? Yeah, universally preferable behavior. It's secular ethics. It's basically, okay, how do we decide what is good and evil without God? And I think that that is the way, if you wanted to do it without God. Matthias Nordblad, a lot of far-left morality is extremely nihilistic and Machiavellian, and their arguments are just meant to gain power and undermine the established order. That's right, they don't care about rationality. They just care about winning. Spook, no, D&D remove the evil races because they say they're racist. Yeah, because they have a concern about stereotyping, which is weird because I didn't think that dark elves and orcs were real, but... Xerax, in Russia, Black Pill approaches you. Spook, all animals are sentient to a degree. Yeah, sentient and aware of morality is not the same. Great Indoors, good afternoon, good afternoon. Nordblad, I don't like most people, but I still love the human race because of all the potential for good. Okay, I gotta respond to my wife here. Alright. And I'm going to go get myself a refill, and then I'll continue. I'm sorry for being on pause for so long. But I just had to talk about that. And it blows my... This is the thing that I've gotten from this is there's a shocking number of people. A shocking number, I think, that believe, that have fallen for the trap that morality itself is subjective. That is kind of fucked. It's kind of fucked. And I think that they're not going to figure out that that's not true until they are faced with the negative consequences of that way of thinking. Because imagine, and there, I mean, there are women in there. Imagine a woman, okay, and she's basically trying to say that, you know, oh, evil is just, you know, there's no such thing as evil. It's all just like different interpretations. And I think the concern is that evil will come. If evil can be identified clearly, then that identification must come from authoritative sources. And she fears that the authoritative source will be one of oppression, right? So if Christianity identifies evil, they hate that. That's one of the reasons why they are engaged in moral relativism. They don't like the idea that... And the thing about Christianity is, and I learned this, and it makes a lot of sense, of all the Abrahamic religions, of all three, Judaism, Islam, and Christianity, Christianity is the only one that applies to all human beings regardless of their religion, their race, their creed, their genetics, their place of origin, period. It's a universal. Christianity is the only one that's universal. If you look in the Torah, Judaism essentially is for the Jews. So all of the stuff would be like, you know, I think that was like, originally it was written as thou shalt not kill Jews. Thou shalt not do things to Jews. And while the language has shifted away from that, it's, if you look at the way in which religious Jews behave, they prioritize their in-group way more than everybody else. And the same thing goes with Muslims. Muslims prioritize other Muslims before other people. It doesn't mean that they're bad to other people necessarily. I'm not making that argument. I'm saying they prioritize themselves over others. Christianity, it does not function that way. It's unique in that it's a universal. And I think that that's New Testament shit mostly. I'm not a theologian. I don't claim to know this for certain. But based on what I've seen, that's the thing that I've noticed that makes it unique. But anyway, I'm going to go get... What? Brian, I think you better off dealing with the Christian zealots in the long run. Well, I just don't want... The thing is, I don't want to end up in a situation where I have to, like, avoid answering the door because there's, like, Jehovah Witnesses not... I got to deal with Jehovah Witnesses every weekend in this neighborhood. And, while I'm not too worried about Mormons, like, they're generally nice, I'd rather be in a place where I don't have to deal with too much zealotry at all. Like, obviously, if I go to a more conservative state, there will be religious people, but you know, that's fine. But yeah, I just don't want to deal with, like, people who are going to be a pain in the ass. If it's one of the other group, no, they're not equally bad, Elong. I'm trying to minimize both, that's all. But if I have to choose, I'll hang out with religious people. The left are authoritarian. No, not necessarily. Both the right and the left can be authoritarian. Stalinist communism is leftist of the fascism. No. Okay. Let me try. Maybe you're from another country. When I say the right, I'm talking about the left and the right operate like this, okay? And by the way, my saying the left is authoritarian doesn't mean necessarily that no one else is. That's a bit of a reductionist argument. The further left you go, the more you want the government to act as a parent to the citizens. So that means the bigger the government in terms of its influence in people's lives. That is expanded by the welfare state, which is by far more money is spent on the welfare state than the military. Don't get it twisted. But the military as well. The more you spend, the more tax money you take from people, the less free the market is, the more left-wing your government is. Okay? And all the way on the end of the left is communism, which of course we've never gotten to. But we've got close. That's what happens, all the way at the end. It's central planning all the way to the end. The right, the further right you go, the more libertarian and the smaller your government is, and the less involved they are. Okay? And if you go all the way to the right, you have anarcho-capitalism. That's all the way to the right. Okay? That's the end. Doesn't get it. That's basically no government, and you know, we're living. You could even just say anarchy, but I would argue that anarchy doesn't work. Anarcho-capitalism also probably wouldn't work either. We've never gotten there, and I think that the reason for that is human nature, and particularly women. But that's a whole other conversation. Okay, everything else is in the middle. Everything else is just in degrees. Fascism is left wing. Nazism is left wing. Communism is left wing. All of that is left wing. Socialism is left wing. All of that is on the left, because all of it requires the centralized government. Monarchism, which is like a pre-Enlightenment idea, it would depend, I think, on how centralized the government is under a monarch. Because you could have a monarch that's just a figurehead that doesn't actually do anything. Like I think Japan, I think still has an emperor, but they don't do anything. And so that and Japan is quite a capitalist country, so it's pretty right wing, despite them having a monarch. But the monarch doesn't have much to do with whether or not they are right or left. And when I talk about right or left, I'm not talking about political parties in any given country that people in those countries regard as right or left, because that is way too open to confusion. Because, you know, right-wingers in the United States, right-wingers in Canada, right-wingers in the UK, right-wingers in Australia are all different. They're all different degrees, because the UK is, in general, farther left than the United States is. Canada is maybe even further left than that, or not quite as much, whereas the United States is further right in general, on their right-wing side. And that is in terms of liberty and free markets and all that. They are further right than most other countries in the world. And so when I talk about right and left, it's only about the size of the state. We don't have to get into the economic part of it, although the size of the state affects the economic part of it, okay? Left-wingers that criticize the military think that military size is a right-wing thing, but that's not true, because left-wing countries also invest a lot in their militaries. Looking at you, China, looking at you, North Korea, looking at you, Cuba, looking, you know, like these are left-wing countries, and they have large militaries. The only problem is that another issue with left-wing countries is that they often want everybody else to spend money on them, because they don't like to produce shit, which is actually part of the problem. Hence, so many of United States allies, one of the reasons why the military is even as big as it is because a lot of other countries don't want to pay for their own militaries. So instead, they ask for the United States to give us their military. You know, like they basically say, we don't have the money to make our military. You have to send us your military. And the United States, for whatever reason, has always offered their military to these other countries, okay? And in so doing, by the way, those countries get to have things like universal health care and free college, because they're not investing in military spending. But if the United States pulled out their military spending and said, we're not going to give you any more military, those countries would cut off their health care and their free college, because they'd have to find a new way to spend the tax dollars. Okay? Whether or not someone... Now, one thing I would say is that there is another axis that I think is often confused with left and right, and that is liberal and conservative. And I think that operates on a different axis. So a monarchy is obviously conservative. But the way in which the monarchy spends how much control, like essentially conservatism and liberalism are more social, right? It's not about the size of the government. It's not about how much control they have over the citizens. It's not about markets. It's about values. It's about, a social the social structure or whatever. And because liberalism is about freedom, and conservatism is not about freedom, but it's about essentially conserving, like holding on to what we have, like using what works and not really being open to change, whereas liberalism is more open to change. But lefties will have you convinced that what they're for, which is state control, which is communism and socialism, well, that's change. So they Marxism failed back in the day because they realized that people wanted to be free and that they didn't like the class struggle narrative. Okay? So they had to reinvent it. And that's where you get cultural Marxism. That's where you get feminism. That's where you get race activism. That's where you get all these other LGBTQ activism. But it's all just Marxism that's just been repackaged because the old way doesn't work. And we know the left lies. They lie about what their intentions are. Because you can go to the Black Lives Matter website and look at what they're about, and they're communists. They just use black men's deaths to push their narratives, right? So if we know that Marxism didn't work under back in the day because people didn't like the idea of class struggle, and they reinvented it to sort of repackage it to make it more appealing, right? Essentially by playing on people's desire for fairness, and then they renamed it equality. Well, they also renamed themselves as liberals. This is like going back to the free speech rallies of the 1960s in California, right? That was at one college. I can't remember the name of the college off the top of my head, but it was basically the college that they all like cheered. And then like many years later, I think in 2017 or something, there were all these riots there because Milo Yiannopoulos wanted to speak at that college. Well, that's because they're not liberal. But they call themselves liberals because liberals sounds nice. Because it is nice. Liberalism is good. I am a liberal myself. But the left is not liberal, and they never were. But they call themselves liberals because they're repackaging their belief system so that other people will jump on board. And this actually is a criticism I have of conservatives too, because they have this term libtards, right? Where they criticize liberals. Now sometimes they're doing it because these conservatives themselves actually aren't liberal. And they're against things like, people being gay and like living their life the way they want to, which I'm for. People engaging in race mixing, people who are, just doing stuff that was considered to be kind of, it was considered to be fringe maybe 30 years ago. Okay. There are some conservatives that don't want that, and they think it's a sin, or they just are against it, or they think it's gross, or whatever, degenerate, whatever you want to call it, okay? But I think that the overwhelming majority of conservatives are talking, when they say libtard, they're actually identifying leftists, and they're identifying the problem, because liberal people want to be free, and there is a line by which the left is more than willing to cross, which essentially means taking away other people's freedoms. It's essentially there's a difference between being okay with the existence of gays in your community and that person being okay with essentially your treatment of them is that you just don't bother them for being gay, you just leave them alone. And then there's a difference between that and the LGBTQ community insisting, if not demanding, that you have a rainbow flag on your profile picture, that you don't make like a PSA, essentially demanding that people treat gay people with respect, that you go to every pride parade, that you let your child transition. Like, those things are not liberal, they're leftist, because they're using liberal values to push their authoritarian ideas. All right. Anyway, let me look at your comments again. I saw that you guys kind of bombarded me while I was talking. Hey, Max. How you doing, man? It's good to see you. They had enlightened monarchs, despots as a concept. Well, yeah. What is Kim Jong Un if not a god, essentially a monarch? Michael Malice describes the left versus right as equality versus hierarchy. What's your take on that? That makes sense in a way. I think that's right. Well, you know what? No, I think that it's conservative and liberal, perhaps, or maybe better yet, conservative and left. Because conservatives tend to believe in natural orders and hierarchies, but right wingers are more about freedom, and so they may say, well, if meritocracy could be a form of hierarchy. But, like, what happens if you try to remove meritocracy? Well, you basically only hurt the people who are doing the best. So, yeah, there's probably some truth to that. I don't think that that's a terrible idea. PewDiePie is not happy about having to play as Abby, nor her sex scene, to say the least. Yeah. PewDiePie is kind of cucking for some time now. Well, he's going to be nice, but he doesn't like the game, and I think that that's obvious. Xerax, left being equality and right being hierarchy doesn't make sense. Peterson demonstrated a hierarchy of needs, and even without him, one can see hierarchies exist just on their own. Well, if you consider that conservatism is about leaving things as they are and following the rules of the natural world, then it would be in defense of hierarchies. By the way, didn't know Jenna was still active. I don't know what Jenna is. She hit the mother of walls. G. Okay. We're reaching Max Darrett in chat. It's over 9,000. Yeah, Max, you're doing really well on YouTube. I'm really happy for you, man. Neo-Marxism and weaponized postmodernism. Yeah, that's right. But the scariest part, Max, is the moral relativism. Like, when you convince people that evil doesn't exist, that's exactly what evil wants, isn't it? Let's see. He describes himself as right-wing, though. He doesn't believe in equality. Well, equality doesn't exist. It's a sentiment. I think fairness is different. It's conservatism and progressivism, not liberalism. Liberalism is the opposite of authoritarianism. Absolutely. That's why the word libertarian exists, because I think that word liberal has been co-opted by the left, and so people who were liberal, they had to come up with something new. I think that you shouldn't let them have the word. I will put it on my gravestone. The left is not liberal. Jenna Hayes. Oh, Jenna Hayes, the porn star? Gross. Let's see. This is how he describes this. If you ask a person, are some people better than others, a right-wing person will say yes, and left-wing person will give you a speech. Yeah. Max, equality versus hierarchy is a microcosm of the macrocosm of conservatism versus liberalism. Some mix of the two is best depending on the situation. God bless, Brian. Thank you, Max. There are three political axes: the left-right axes, authoritarian, anarchist, liberal axes, and the progressive, conservative, tradition axes. And some people might say a cultural axes. Equality isn't fair. That's true. Fair isn't just either. I don't necessarily think fairness equals justice and mercy combined. Yeah, fairness does depend on mercy, because you would have to give it. Because you know what? I gotta get my coffee. I'll be right back. Alright, I'm back. It's the coffee versus no coffee axis. Yeah, that's the only axis that matters. Frankly, I think the only axis that really matters is authoritarianism and libertarianism. Because all the other things would basically just fall away, honestly. If people were left alone, free to do whatever. And I include discriminate in that. I think the freedom to discriminate is actually quite important. I am gonna brick this guy so hard. No, nigga. Oh yeah? Oh yeah? Now I got your fucking machete. Alright, I'm gonna upgrade this fucking thing. Oh yeah, no, it's right here. Here we go. Dude, Joel, like, he fucking... he upgrades weapons incredibly fast. Jesus Christ. Alright, I'm just trying to get an idea of where these dudes are. Is this really the only way I can go down here? Line up! You fucking... What did he do? Sharpen it? Now I get healed up a bit.
All right, house is clear.
Let's get back to the horses.
Were you mad at me, Ellie? I don't give a fuck.
We're clear.
I'm a coffee extremist when I want to be productive.
Hand up.
Got it.
Hey, Max. I know that you said that you don't... If you're still here, actually, give me a holler really quick. Max, you played The Last of Us, right? Did you hear my bit about how... I hope that you're still there. So I think that you actually even made a video about The Last of Us, but I can't remember. If you haven't played it, you absolutely should. But I want to... I did a rant just now about why The Last of Us Part 1 and The Last of Us Part 2 are fundamentally different. It has to do with the idea of moral relativism.
Here she is.
And how The Last of Us Part 1 does have objective morality in it. It's not just about, like, father and daughter and all the political shit, but there's, at its root, The Last of Us Part 1 is a positive, hopeful message that tells you there is such a thing as good in this world, no matter how bad things get. And The Last of Us Part 2 essentially erases that and says none of it matters.
What are you doing?
Your wife kind of scares me. I don't want her coming after.
Sorry for stealing your horse.
Come back to town. Let's discuss it at least.
My mind's all made up. University, Eastern Colorado. How do I find this lab?
It's in the science building. Looks like a giant mirror, and you can't miss it.
Take care of that wife of
place for you here. No.
Good.
I'm good.
Adios, little brother.
See, Joel's decision to take Ellie the rest of the way, that solidifies their relationship. Like, I don't know how this...
Clear the 10 yards in your back.
First down, that's right. Hey, you just gotta play it a couple times. It all makes sense.
Well, I'm going to stop the game here. It's gonna like look at your comments really quick. Joel is the MacGyver of weapon upgrades. Except for egoists. I don't know how that is a political group. I don't know what an egoist is. Well, I guess Max left. I'm offering this up to Max. I would like Max Darrett to make a video about Bloodborne. Because I think that all of the dream, consciousness, subconsciousness stuff in it, it's just aching to have videos made about it. And there's like this guy named Vatividya, and he is probably, maybe, I don't know, arguably like the most popular YouTuber when it comes to making videos about the Soulsborne games. That's Dark Souls, Dark Souls 2, Dark Souls 3, Bloodborne, and Sekiro. And he hasn't touched on that much of like the dream themes that are in Bloodborne. So I would, what I was gonna say is maybe I could do a playthrough of it, and Max could I could show, like, maybe, I don't know, put it up, or Max could play, like, be on the stream with me or something, and, you know, he can make a video about it. I don't know. I think that it's something that would be really interesting, so... Anyway, just something to put out there. I'm gonna quit now that we're at this point and wrap the show up there. Dude, I wish I could stay, but I gotta go. Is there a Discord server that I could join to continue this political talk with you? Yeah, yes. I'm a part of Honey Badger Radio, and you can go to badger.online to get into the free Discord server, badger.online, or you could go to my main channel that I work at. This is like my gaming channel. I have a personal main channel, which I haven't made videos for in a while, but I also I mainly work at Honey Badger Radio. The channel is called Badger Live Streams. That's Badger Live Streams on YouTube. 3 separate words, Badger Live Streams. And in the description of basically any of the recent videos is a link to go to the Discord. And it doesn't give you access to all of the Discord, only the free rooms. But yeah, go in there. So, and I'll probably, let me see, I'll probably stream some more Last of Us tomorrow morning. So if you want to like just come around the same time, I'll see you online as well. But yeah, I think that well, anyway, I had fun. So thanks guys for coming on and hanging out with me while I played some of this game and talked a little bit about the existence of evil and why the left wants to erase it. And I'll talk to you later. Hope we can save our culture.